Good morning, everyone. Today is January 25th, 2021, and this is the first meeting of 2021 of the State Street Subcommittee. Ms. Perea, can we please call the roll?
We certainly can. Chair Harmon?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez?
Present.
Councilmember Snedden? Councilmember Snedden? Let's give her a second. I know that her audio wasn't working earlier. Councilmember Snedden, are you there?
Well, we'll continue on with the housekeeping items. I know she's trying to get on, so hopefully, I think we've all been having some technical difficulties this morning. So, Mr. Harris, will you take us through the preliminary matters, please?
Certainly. Good morning, Chair, members of the public and subcommittee. Jason Harris, Economic Development Manager. So preliminary matters, we'll have announcements next. Agenda review followed by approval of the December 21st, 2020 subcommittee meeting minutes, and then we'll take general public comment, items not on the agenda. Announcements, I have two announcements. First, as you'll see later in the presentation, this is the last week of the community survey availability. It closes on Sunday, January 31st. And so we do have the website up and available with a link. It's santabarbaraca.gov/State Street for individuals wanting to gain access to the community survey. And then really exciting news, one of two announcements. We're anticipating the governor lifting the statewide stay-at-home order. Now we just need for the county to adopt a revised public health order to put us back in the purple tier of operation that would allow outdoor dining and a number of business activities that have been closed. So that's very substantive for our community. So looking for that. On to the next item. Agenda review, as I referenced, approval of minutes will be up next for the December 21st, 2020 meeting. Our two topics for the subcommittee's presentation discussion is update on State Street management in the State Street visioning process before adjournment. We'll have public comment on those items as always. And with that, present minutes of December 21st, 2020 meeting minutes that went out prior to this meeting for review.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'll open this up to my colleagues if they have any questions or comments on the minutes. If none, I'll entertain. Hi, Councilmember Snedden. If none, I'll entertain a motion related to approval of the December 21st, 2020 meeting minutes.
I have a question, Madam Chair, if that's okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, please go ahead.
Mr. Harris, you said that the state may lift the stay-at-home order. Do you know when that could happen?
The governor announced this morning a lifting of the stay-at-home order statewide. However, we do operate under the county public health orders, and that is we still have the stay-at-home order in effect that the county adopted in companion with the state. So the state needs to, or the county, excuse me, needs to adopt a revised public health order. So waiting for that. I have queries into the county as to how soon that will be coming forth.
Okay, and do you know if when it is lifted, whether barbershops and hair salons would be able to offer it?
That would be my expectation. That we were in the public, if you recall, the state had adopted the 4-tier system, and we were in the purple tier, and then we moved up to the red tier prior to the stay-at-home order. So the purple tier is the expectation I have, but I think I'd hate to speculate. I'd wait for the county public health order to be revised, and hopefully we'll be going out here shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Sneddon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a comment on the minute. Just under my comments on page 2, I just want to note, it says that my recommendation is council to invest in a professional design standard master plan that will apply citywide. And I just want to emphasize that I think it's more than just design standards. I don't think I said design standards. So I just don't want that to be carrying forward as like, well, this is what you said, because I think I want a more broad master plan. So if that could just be noted, I'd appreciate it.
If you have a recommendation, Councilmember Sneddon, for a change in wording on that, we can go ahead and include that in the motion. That might be best. Maybe deletion of the word professional standards. What do you think is best?
Thank you. I think maybe delete design standard master plan. Just design standard. Take those 2 words out. Thank you.
Would you be willing to make the motion, Councilmember Sneddon?
Yes, with that change, I'd like to move to approve the minutes of December.
I will second that. Ms. Perea, can you please do a roll call vote to approve the motion made by Councilmember Sneddon with the deletion that she noted in her comment?
Yes. Chair Harmon,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez,
Yes.
and Councilmember Sneddon.
Yes.
Great. That passes unanimously. And now we will move on to general public comment. As a reminder for those who may be watching today, this is for items that are not on our agenda. So please feel free to share your thoughts with us on items that we're not going to be speaking about on the agenda today. Ms. Perea, are there any public commenters that wish to speak with us today?
Yes, we have, the first is Fred Sweeney. Fred Sweeney, feel free to unmute yourself, and you're welcome to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Fred Sweeney. As many of you know, I participated in the AIA charrette exercise. In fact, a lot of the sketches that are on those boards are mine, as Ms. Sneddon knows. I would encourage you to continue. I know you have 2 vital tasks in front of you. One is the immediate health of State Street, and then the long-term vision of State Street. And I think this effort for you now to take the leadership in developing a master plan for State Street and downtown is vitally important. As Mike Jordan said at last week's council meeting, you now have to take the lead. The AIA, yes, it did what it needed to do as architects, but engagement with property owners and store managers is vital if it's going to succeed at all, and developers. So I encourage you to take that step, get a master plan in place. I was involved in developing the master plan for the Mission Canyon corridor where the Mission Bridge is being developed. That war effort wide Street to Los Encinas. I also early in my career participated in the downtown master plan for the city of San Luis Obispo. So I know it can be done. And I would urge you to move in that direction. Yes, you have some short-term immediate concerns about State Street. We all understand that, but the long-term vision of this committee is vitally important for the future of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Next commenter, please, Ms. Perea.
Actually, he was the only commenter for public comment at this time.
Okay, well, that closes general public comment, and we will move on to the agenda items, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Harris. Thanks.
Hello, good morning all. So our first of two items is update on State Street management, and I'd like to invite Mr. Rob Dayton to join in the presentation. We have one slide for Mr. Dayton to speak off of, and I'll turn it over to him. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, hi, Anthony. So we're going through the state management, State Street. You see that the pots are in. The really great help from the group that Anthony was leading. Actually, this is a picture of us vetting the palette, which we replicated what they approved and gave the nod to throughout the entire promenade. So really, really good work working together in coordination. The bollards and the green lanes are on a separate contract, and so they will be going on as rain permits. This month, those will be installed, so that's the schedule right now. Other thing that's happening is a lot of coordination with businesses on the storm flow. We did have a storm last year, so we kind of figured out like what is the storm capacity of the parklets, and then we identified the areas that were real problematic. We have noticed every single parklet owner twice via mail, and then we visited each one of them twice as well. And then Victor Garza, my team, has been working with the most problematic situations to get them to move immediately ahead of the storm that we're going to experience this month. We do have a backup plan with streets and heavy equipment if there should be an issue in real time with flooding to remove parklets or move them back from the gutter. So we have a plan in place also for that in Public Works. The other thing is the new police foot patrol was established on State Street. That's been really going well. We've been in coordination with the ambassador program and CityNet to monitor the street. Of course, the street conditions changed significantly when the rest outdoor dining was eliminated. So that's something that will change again as the governor opens up State Street to parklet operation again. And then the other thing is that is actually not on this list is Anthony and his team presented to you some guidelines and some stipulations about how we want to have the parklets now look on State Street. And so we're in this time of shifting now to the interim where we have an expectation that the design will not be willy-nilly, just throw it up to operate in a save the business sort of way, but now shifting towards, we also want it to look really, really good. So those design guidelines with Anthony's team should be updated. They're in a draft form right now. They should be updated by next week. They will be on the website. And then also we haven't added an approval process. So it's not a heavy approval process, but before the process was just go ahead and build it. We'll catch you out there and try to help you as you go along. Now you actually have to submit to the outdoor dining email address with your plan, a little sketch of your plan. That's been going really well. Just to give you a couple examples of that, there's a place on Daily Garrett, I forget, it's like a winery that we've been working with. It's going to do something a little bit more elegant to the tune of Anthony and their team and the new guidelines. We also we've been working with Opal to change their parklet remember the big challenge is this winterization and having a covering, but also meeting the look and feel of the design that we want to see, and then making that convertible or in the future, as the team talked about, that we do not want to have coverings in addition to umbrellas, just umbrellas in the future when things are opened up inside the brick and mortar spaces. So encouraging parklet owners that are coming forward with plans now to make them convertible so we can get, as we change the interim design guidelines as we go through, as we anticipate we will. And that's the update. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Dayton. Mr. Grumbine, you can go ahead and turn off your camera right now, I think, unless you have something.
All right.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I often leave mine on as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
putting your heads up there. You can go ahead and make public comment. I don't think members of the public are specifically agendized, so I'd like to try to stay within the sort of four walls of the agenda. So I will open up public comment on this item once my colleagues and I have an opportunity to ask questions. So my first question, Mr. Dayton, I really appreciate this update on how these design guidelines are moving to be implemented in a way that recognizes and respects the challenging moment that our local businesses are going through. Can you describe for us in a little bit more detail the approval process? What does that look like? And can you remind us when these guidelines and the approvals would be necessary and when that comes into play for business? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you for that. So just to pull back 50,000 foot level, we are changing these guidelines all the time. I think we're on guideline 27.0, so we're the first approval process that we're introducing is simply send us an email with a sketch so that we have an idea that you're really getting close to what the expectation is. As we're shifting the expectation, we don't want to have someone invest a lot of money in something that doesn't meet the visual expectations that, the new standard we're setting. So that's all it is. It's just an email with a sketch. We've seen 3 of those so far. That's going really well. And then our team is out there, eyes and ears on the street, making sure if someone does start to construct, we haven't had a lot, fortunately, over the break with the closure, but we anticipate that starting up again as things open up. We will catch them and say, hey, let's just review your sketch, and we want to be high touch and be out there and available for people and help them get to success as soon as possible. I would imagine as we move further down the road and we start, formalizing things, that review process may get a little bit more in depth. With some sort of defined plan iterations so that we can, really begin to see what, things that are going to be there more permanent, at least in the coming year or perhaps years, depending on when council determines that they're looking good and they're what Santa Barbara would expect to see on the street in the interim level.
Thank you very much. I will open it up to my colleagues, Mayor Pro Tem, Council Member Sneddon. Do either of you have questions for Mr. Dayton at this time? Councilmember Sneddon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really quickly about winterizing, and then you mentioned working with Opal. And so I know there were questions about whether that part of the street or half of the street might be still closed for Opal and those businesses there. If you could just give a update on that.
Yes, Committee Member Sneddon, Councilmember Sneddon, yeah, we anticipate leaving that street exactly the way it is. We've set the pots or the new planters up for that configuration, which is a one-way up with a 90-degree parking. And so you can enter from Arlington Avenue in the middle. We're getting a lot of satisfaction from that block, that they really like the configuration that's going on now. So we would not anticipate recommending a change unless there was other evidence or interest in doing that. I think we think that is a good interim configuration, and we've planned the planters to formalize it and look beautiful that way.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no questions from Mayor Pro Tem, we will open it up to public comment on this. Are there any public commenters, Ms. Perea?
No, there are no hands raised at this time. Oh, actually, somebody just raised their hand.
Great.
We have Warren Butler. Warren Butler, I'm sending you your audio pin. You're going to need to use that to access your audio through the phone. And as soon as you input that, you should be able to speak. Warren Butler, you'll need to enter your audio pin. That number is 80848. And if you go ahead and enter that, you should be able to speak. Madam Chair, oh, it looks like he might have just entered. There we go. He's connected.
Hello, how you doing?
Great, thank you. Please go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate this. I'm speaking on behalf of Chase Restaurant on State Street and all my fellow hospitality businesses up and down the street. I definitely want to commend you on your actions in getting the sidewalk and the street, and the parklets open. It really helped us during the summer, so just want to extend our appreciation for that. And I believe I have a good look and vision of what's going on State Street because I'm here every day for the last year, and I see the positive things that are going on. So I definitely want to reach out and let you know that closing down the street, I think it's a matter of sending a clear message to everybody. Though it looks like closing down the street 99% makes sense. So I think that people, somewhere along the line, you'll make that decision. Okay, we're not going to open up the street to cars. And then the most important thing, though, that I wanted to project is I think that based on everything that I see and I hear, the street has to kind of be used almost as a boulevard for bikes, pedestrians, scooters, skating boards. When all that happens, and it's happened when we first opened up, it was amazing to see everybody come out, the locals. One of the big questions is how do you get locals down on State Street? Well, the way is to create a safe, easy route boulevard for people to go down the street all the way from the Arlington all the way to the beach, and it just creates this lively place. So my dime is that eventually you probably want to get rid of the parklets, leave the street, 14 feet for the middle for bikes, and then on each side of that for pedestrians, and leave the sidewalks for the businesses to open up their cafes and their kiosks and so on and so forth. And and I think we need to do that like first step right away, and then down the road, obviously, all the great ideas about housing and so on and so forth. But right away, as soon as we move back inside, I think we have to have a plan that we're going to open the street up and it's going to be safe. The problem right now is you get bikes and people on the street at the same time, and it's kind of intimidating. If you're with 3 or 4 people, you're going to, and so it opened up great, and then it kind of waned off for a lot of different reasons, a lot having to do with COVID. And now here we are opening up. It looks like the governor lifted the stay-at-home order, and we're already going to be moving forward. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the future of State Street, but I think it needs to be clear to the businesses, don't spend a lot of money on canopies, on parklets, on all that, because it's going to be tough to manage anyway. Utilize and plan on being prepared to, have people, from all, visitors and so on and so forth. Make State Street the main artery that kind of feeds the entire city. So that's important too, is to look at this, not only what's best for State Street, not what's best for the 500 block, but what's going to be better for the whole street. What's going to be better for somebody 8 blocks away where he's saying, you know what, it's just the same old, we're just moving people around. Let's create an environment that brings more and more people to Santa Barbara, more and more people to State Street, and then it's going to be the main artery that feeds the entire city. People will be willing to ride their bike, their shared bike, their electric bike, and take it to the Mesa, take it to the east side, take it 8 blocks away. So all of a sudden, everybody's going to be behind it. Everybody's going to be excited about it. So that's the most important thing I see, and I think that the more we can start planning now, so as soon as we move back inside 100%, that we can, get off the boat running, and then we can work on the bigger issues down the road. So anyway, that's just, I have more detail to go over, but obviously I only have so much time now, but I just wanted to mention that and tell you I'm looking forward. Even the shared biking, I think, is a step in the right direction, so I'm excited.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment, Mr. Butler. We appreciate it. Next public commenter, Ms. Perea.
Next commenter is Anthony Grumbine. Anthony, you're welcome to go ahead and speak, please. And it looks like
Okay.
All right. So sorry about that. Wasn't sure if I was which part I was playing on this. I guess as a sort of overview, I think that the things are going well with, as Rob has been saying, for a lot of those pieces. I think some of the important lessons learned on it are that it was great to have Robert Adams and Courtney Jane Miller, landscape architects, as well as all the architects on it, to help sort of push this with this last push effort. But I think one of the key takeaways in it is also that if we're involved earlier, the earlier we're involved with things, and we as in design community or HLC or whoever, the better the outcomes can be in the process. So I think it's super important that all the other pieces going forward are really, we had the discussion early rather than trying to fix things after the fact or just be reactionary about things. So I think that's really an important takeaway from it as well. And happy with how things are going so far on that. And then also in terms of the long-term, the last speaker was just talking about this as well, and I think others have chimed in on this, but I think it really highlights this subcommittee's role and the importance of it going forward, because now we're talking what is the midterm plan, which in my understanding would have to go to HLC as well, as even it's not just an emergency short-term thing, but how, and what is that plan and how is that going to get implemented? And then as well for the long-term plan, of course, for the whole city, and the State Street is a core part of it, but it's really got to be worked out to the whole city. And so that goes for transportation and biking as things are being all connected. I think it's super important that we have big picture thinking on the whole city in many aspects, and not just a single piece at a time. So, and happy to answer any questions as needed for any of those things.
Thanks, Mr. Grubbein. Appreciate it. Ms. Perea, any additional public commenters?
Yes, we're going to have a couple more. The next is Cass Ensberg. Cass, you're welcome to unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. It really is. It is great to see you all. Cass Ensberg here, architect, and working to help the community from our design and art in particular. I just want to agree with, appreciate the work of the staff, definitely, absolutely, always appreciate, and glad to see, we'll look very much forward to seeing the updated document that Rob was referring to. I just want to underscore also what Fred Sweeney said about the need for a master plan, and also Anthony said the same thing. I think this is really important. Councilwoman Sneddon has been talking about this for some time, and clearly we need to know where we're going. We have, I think that will be a very, very important next step to take all of these things. We have, as I've said numerous times before, many ideas out there, many ideas in the charrette, many ideas from all of our various community members. So we really need to, get into this and decide, well, which way are we going to go with this? There are, differences of opinions. So let's get down to it and start talking about the different ways to bring it together. And just again, the absolute importance of design, and please to be sure that is design always present in the room for anything that we move forward with. It's critical to have design and art, and we can often find ways to do things faster and less expensively if given the opportunity to be part of the discussion. So thank you again for all your work, and I'm here for anything I can do to help. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Ensberg. Next public speaker, please.
Okay, next we have Richard Yates. Richard Yates, you're welcome to go ahead and unmute yourself. It looks like his connection might have just... Richard Yates, you're welcome to unmute yourself, and you're welcome to go ahead and speak. Go ahead and speak. Looks like he might be having audio issues. audio appears to be on, but we don't hear him. Richard Yates, I'm going to go ahead and call on somebody else, and if you want to try and see if you can fix your audio, we'll get back to you. Madam Chair, the next is Kim Cochran. Kim Cochran, go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello. Wow, I wasn't expecting to be on so soon. I didn't have time to really collect my thoughts. First of all, thank you for the committee for recognizing that there is a need for a bigger vision. I'd like to thank everybody involved with what's happened with the State Street so far. It does look better. As a member of the AIA and volunteer for the charrette, I would also like to emphasize the use of arts. And part of the design of the overall master plan, there are case studies of cities actually hiring artists to help with the design and the vision of it. And I think that that is one way that we can actually include our community more and also emphasize what's important to us as a community. I'd also like to explore ways on how we can keep the money actually in Santa Barbara. I know that's a whole nother conversation, but I'd like to start talking about it. So again, thank you. I wish my thoughts were more clear and collected, and that is all I really have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Cochran. Next speaker, please.
Yes, we have Richard Clausen. Richard Clausen, feel free to unmute yourself and you may speak.
Thank you very much, Chair Harmon and Councilmember Sneddon. I'd like to chime in just to second part of the comments made by Anthony Grumbine. I think that involving the HLC earlier rather than later is a terrific idea. I'm not so sanguine about the design community. I think that architects tend to be build, baby, build, or if you build it, they will come advocates. And we have a built environment already that many of us cherish. And I think the HLC is a great protectorate of that. I have noticed in recent months that the city, intentionally or otherwise, committees on the city seem to consider the HLC either an impediment or sort of a side box on the organizational chart and don't include it often enough and early enough in the planning stage. And I'd like to see that improved. But I do think that you guys are doing a great job. And another speaker, well, I just think that you're on the right track. Long-term vision is the only vision that we should be looking at. I think that the COVID lockdown forced some other issues on the commercial viability of State Street, but the long-term vision is what you should be looking at, and I believe that you are. Thanks very much for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Clausen. Next speaker, please.
Okay, let's go ahead and call on Richard Yates again. Richard Yates, if you'd like to unmute yourself and go ahead and speak. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. It does look like your audio feed is open and that you're unmuted, but we aren't able to hear you. Madam Chair, he may be having audio issues.
Okay. Well, Mr. Yates, I would invite you to please send us an email with your thoughts. I apologize that the technology has been a little bit troublesome today, but please do send us a message and we'll look forward to hearing your thoughts on this matter. Are there any further commenters, Ms. Perea?
No more commenters at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, we will close public comment on this item, and I will open it up to my colleagues if they have any discussion or comments they'd like to make before we move on. Councilmember Sneddon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the public comment sort of ranged beyond the State Street management in the short term. So I do want to discuss some of those public comments, but I'm not sure if you want us to be discussing that here in this item or after the next item.
If you feel called to discuss it now, please go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. I think just in general, I think as we're all coming to that we need that long-term visioning, and just to some of the specific comments here that I agree with public commenters that earlier input is better, and I'm just in all of this feeling sort of missing the voices at the table in all aspects of our planning commissioner or HLC member, and we have Mr. Grumbine joining us, which is fantastic as public comment, but as part of the conversation, and Parks and Rec voice. A few mentioning about the arts, someone specifically from the arts community on each step of the way, and just an example, even for the long-term vision, but for the short-term, for the pots, which I'm so grateful that they're installed and there's such an improvement. But maybe there was an opportunity to have that be a public art collaborative or input on that. And I think there was a moment with the lighting when we were sort of given the impression that to take something to HLC would take too long for formal approval. But if someone from HLC was at the table during the discussions, it would just be input. And I just want to emphasize that the more voices at the table, the better. And then a public commenter mentioned landscape architects, and yes, why not have landscape architects at the table making these decisions? So I guess I'll have the same comments, I think, when we're talking about visioning also, but I'm just really feeling the lack of that input on every step of the way, interim through long-term. So the earlier the better as input, and not a lengthy process to go through approval, which is a whole different process, but just chiming in with, oh, well, did you think about this? No, didn't think about that. That sounds great. Add it in, that kind of thing. So that's just a general comment I have in response to the public commenters who happen to comment in this section. But I think the POTS, very, very grateful that they're there, and the update part about added foot patrol was very much needed. And thank you so much for responding to that and reporting out on that. I think we've had so many calls for the necessity of that, and thank you. And thank you again for helping us move through the transition of that immediate need, and now was looking to interim and long-term. I really crave the input of a very broad pool of voices that I don't feel we're getting in the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sneddon, and I very much appreciate your feedback and agree. And I think, again, our intention is that we do move forward to full council to identify the contours of that broader group so that we can ensure, as you described, that everyone's voice is at the table. That is the intention, that is the plan, and I'm hoping maybe Mr. Dayton or Mr. Harris can describe just sort of how we'll be moving the next 5 to 6 weeks, because this isn't very, very long out. And I think we all anticipate building a group that is really inclusive, as you describe, and as you crave, Councilmember Sneddon, and I think that's coming. So Mr. Dayton, you want to give us a little bit of your thoughts on that and how this process will look over the next 5 to 6 weeks and potentially into the future?
Yeah, Mr. Harris and I can offer that, but so just always know what we're talking about. So there's 2 tracks. There's the interim, what are we going to do to formalize in the next 3 years, and then there's the vision for the construction project that's in the future. So speaking to the next 3 years, thank you for that, Councilmember Sneddon. The reason you're feeling that way is because that's exactly how we've moved. We've gotten things open. We've gotten things going really rapidly. I think it was extremely successful. And now we have to pay attention to now when businesses, as they reopen and they're shored up and they're now, and we see, hopefully we see the COVID thing ending and we see a sunset of that, we're going to have to be nimble and flexible. The two words we've used since day one to transition to a more formalized approval process. And that will, in fact, involve the HLC and other folks in a more formal way, not even in a, just having team members come along, but we're going to have to formalize some things. We're going to have, hopefully, my vision would be some sort of a objective design standard for the guidelines so that once they're approved, as long as you conform with them, that you can build, and we have to balance the approval process with the speed at which people can put things in. But again, yes, we've got to make sure that it fits with the street. And there may be opportunities if council wants to provide additional funding. You mentioned the planters and the green lanes and the bollards. If council wants to assign more money to that, because there's a want for something that is a little bit more looks better or has a better feel as we experience those improvements, absolutely, we can do that too. And we can do formalized approval processes for that piece as well.
And I guess we can describe sort of the longer term, broader master plan visioning that I think Councilmember Sneddon was talking about on the next item. So with that, unless Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez has any comments, I'll give him an opportunity to hop on if he has anything.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. With that, we will close that item and move to item B, which is the State Street visioning process. Thank you.
Certainly, Madam Chair, subcommittee members, we're to the second of the two items, State Street visioning process. And I will do some introductory overviews and then ask Mr. Dayton to walk through kind of the update and the exercise beforehand. So as I'd call attention to everyone that we have the State Street community survey is still up and available. Here is the website address, santabarbaraca.gov/State Street. It is open till January 31st, so this coming Sunday, midnight. We have 4,500 responses to date. That works out to be about 1,100, maybe about, 4,100 just over on online responses and just over 400 ambassador pad intercept surveys on the street. And then as always, our email address for comment and questions along the way. So I think the public that has submitted statements of interest. And just reminding the subcommittee, per the direction early in the process, we were given direction to go visit a number of boards, commissions, committees, and stakeholder organizations. So they're listed here. Mr. Dayton and I, from October up through this month, have been having what I would describe focus group conversations. We would have a PowerPoint presentation. That presentation is on the State Street Subcommittee website. And we've, I think there's been just the video clip of our presentation to the Planning Commission, for instance. So the community could follow along with the presentation that was given. And then we had a series of 3 questions that you will see, here later as we provide the feedback that these community groups, really community leaders to a certain extent, they all volunteer in these various capacities. So as you can see, it's listed here, put them in alphabetical order: Arts Advisory, the Community Development Human Services Committee, Community Events Festivals Committee, Downtown Parking, Historic Landmarks, Neighborhood Advisory, Parks and Recreation, Planning Commission, Santa Barbara Youth Council, Transportation Circulation Committee, as well as Downtown Santa Barbara, Downtown Property Owners, Santa Barbara Coalition, and Coalition for Sustainable Transportation. They've now combined their groups. Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber, and Visit Santa Barbara. I want to thank all of those groups for getting us on their board agendas and making time for Mr. Dayton and I to meet with them and collect those responses. And we submitted both to the subcommittee as well as it's posted on the subcommittee website, a memo to the subcommittee, effectively a council report, as it were, of kind of the questions that was being posed to these groups. And then we gave a full documentation of all of the feedback given. We summarized that. Mr. Dayton here on the next slides is going to review that feedback, that thematic information that we got from those 3 questions. But we put the full documentation out there as well, 23 pages worth of collective notes for subcommittee and the public to review. And this is concurrent to the community survey that we have ongoing. That will be our next meeting on February 8th to review the community survey results and kind of do that in review and reflection of the thematic survey. So with that, I will transition to Mr. Dayton to take us through the next slides. Thank you with that.
So it's pretty exciting for us to have gone through this process. How cool to actually have interviews with over 125 of the key leaders, many of which the council has designated for our community, and see what they have to say about this vision for the future of State Street. And really they bled off from State Street into the downtown and the side streets. So it was a very robust conversation, very gratifying as a planner to be able to hear that and get it down on paper. I hope you all were able to look at the kind of the raw data of their comments in those interviews. Very good to read. And these 3 questions that we asked, it's interesting that the questions that we asked about what is the reason why now, what is the experience, what is the purpose of State Street, what is the role or the goal of State Street, why does it matter? They were specifically to try to begin to paint a picture for what is the vision, how would we cast the vision. And what's really good about this part of the process is it doesn't matter if you do a specific plan or a master plan or a street project after the vision can guide whatever the council decides to do next in terms of process. So it's really the pinnacle place where we, top of mind, 50,000 foot level of how we see State Street in the future. So with that, we'll just go to the next slide and look at the themes. Now, what was really interesting about this, and I think council members Sneddon and Megan Harmon will remember the De La Guerre process. And what was really interesting to me is in the De La Guerre process, our themes that we were hearing was a very long list. It was probably 3 or 4 pages. The themes in the State Street visioning process were much fewer. What we do when we look at the document, what we're listening for is the music. What are the notes that are struck again and again and again and again that people are saying that becomes this consistent resonance that says, hey, this is what it looks like to me. And then the first question that we asked really was, why now? Why would we revision State Street now and move forward? And the notes that were hit, and these are in relative form of priority in terms of what we heard the most first. So profoundly, the first 2 things, the first 2 bullet points is that we would do it to revitalize the downtown and we would do it to create a safe experience. When we talk about homelessness, we don't talk about homelessness in the genre of like it's a bad thing. No, homelessness is a challenge, and it's something we want to address. The behaviors of homelessness and the experiencing some of the behaviors that are extremely negative or illegal, people really resonated it as being unsafe. And so that second bullet, to create a safe experience, really has to do with that area. So those were the 2 main ones. Then we have for economic revitalization for the city and for the downtown, this feeling that downtown is really the economic engine of the city and that revisiting State Street will set it right, that economic revitalization for the downtown. To be people-centric, another powerful theme is that whatever we do must be people-centric. To facilitate housing downtown, people, and you saw that in the AIA presentation, actually the AIA folks have a very formal section on housing and that was no different for your leaders that we visited. That this vision needs to facilitate housing downtown to reestablish downtown's identity. We hear in the music of the comments that somehow Santa Barbara's identity and State Street, the identity of Santa Barbara has been lost or miscast, and that this vision for State Street will recapture and define the identity for downtown and for the city itself. And it will bring people downtown. That's another strong theme we heard, that whatever we put there will be a magnet, not just for people coming to State Street once as a, just to see it, but it'll recapture their attention again and again and again. This was focused on locals, which is the next bullet, which is to design for locals. So that's the why now. The next question is the next slide. So what purpose does State Street fulfill? This is really is the routine of the vision. And we've couched this in the underlying statements. It is, it feels, it provides, it represents. There are other ways to do that, and we could add that in this exercise with the committee. But these are the highlights, the notes that we saw. And that is, it is the defining place of Santa Barbara's identity. It's accessible to all people, families, generations, income levels, abilities, and diversities. It feels safe, inviting, accessible, bustling. It provides a range of commercial and cultural activities, a place for walking and biking. It represents Santa Barbara's sustainable values and experience that are unique to Santa Barbara. So it's got the flavor of Santa Barbara, and it imbibes our values as a city, our sustainable values. Next slide was, you just go to the next one, is this last question: why does it matter for State Street and the downtown revitalization? As you know, this has been the big predecessor leading up to to COVID. The COVID pandemic experience was this revitalization of downtown. So this question really gets at, when we're thinking about State Street visioning, what role does it play, or why does it matter for the broad downtown revitalization? Number one answer, because it will create and define the identity of Santa Barbara. It gives the downtown revitalization a local focus, because it will renew our pride in downtown, because it will make downtown a stronger destination for Santa Barbara's, the region, and the tourist industry, because it accomplishes the most significant part of downtown revitalization. All these answers really, if the theme, if you will, in them is that you do State Street, you've done the lion's share or the biggest part of the revitalization of downtown. If you do State Street, you've done most of it. So that's what we've heard, but that's just our draft proposal on what these themes would be. So what we would do now in this section, before we go on to we could talk about what's next steps. We want to hear that first. But what we would do now is we turn it over to the committee and ask you. You've read the staff report. You've read the notes. We'd ask you to do one of three things with the themes that we've come up with. We'd ask you to affirm the theme, say, yeah, I agree with that. I feel that that's right. Or actually, there's one that I would add. We think you missed this one. This was a note that I really clearly see and I heard, and we'd like to add this theme. Or no, we don't agree with that one, subtract it. So we're really looking for an editing of the themes to make sure that you are comfortable that you have all the themes you need. Why is that important? Well, the next meeting on the 8th, what we're going to be talking about is our vision statement. And we will use the themes to construct that vision statement. So that would be on February 8th. And then we'll also bring in the survey, and we'll specifically compare the survey results to the themes to make sure they're congruent and there's no last minute changes that you want to make to those. And then we will go ahead and work with the committee to develop a vision statement and make recommendations to the city council. One of the things that's that I would even suggest as you think about this is the themes themselves, only a page and a quarter, are a pretty already robust picture of that future. And you might even say, hey, in addition to our statement, just include all the themes as instructions for how you would vision going forward, whether that, again, could be a specific plan, master plan, conceptual plan, all sorts of ways to move forward, but could be that you just use the whole list of themes as a guide for any document that would be done next or process. And with that, Madam Chair, happy to answer questions, and we would love to walk you through the process of adding the themes or subtracting the themes or affirming the themes that you found most interesting or you'd like to add.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dayton. Just a quick question, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues for their questions. On the next slide about next steps, that final bullet point that says make recommendations to council, I just want to clarify because I think it's important, and Councilmember Sneddon brought this up in her last comments. It's at that point that the full council would identify a more robust or a robust committee or group or approach for master planning. So it's at that bullet point that we put together. I think what she describes and what she so importantly points out is really just getting a whole bunch of different folks at the table. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we would we'll have something prepared for you to speak to and figure out if you'd like to add or change whatever. But yes, you're making a recommendation to council on the vision and then how to move forward.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Dayton. And if we could, I think, go back to the slide on the themes, that might be a useful place to put the PowerPoint, and I'll open it up to Councilmember Sneddon. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a, and thank you, Mr. Dayton. As a follow-up, I suppose it's a question and a comment, and I will admit to through this entire process being not clear myself on how the process goes. So I suppose just back to the earlier comments, I'm coming up with, even though it's been through all of these processes, coming up with the actual vision statement for State Street. That's the part where I feel like we need the input from all those voices. So I don't know how else to articulate that. I mean, I can affirm that this is what people gave their input on and that there are a lot of great themes there. I guess we're not in discussion yet, but I guess that was my question, that so we as a committee of 3 will be making the vision statement for all of State Street. Is that's how it's currently laid out? I guess is my question.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Sneddon, so the folks that you sent us off to included in that list is all your boards and commissions. So all of HLC and all of all the folks were interviewed for this. So you can choose to do what you want, what you think is best. We're suggesting that you recommend a vision statement to council. But as I mentioned in my presentation, this is a pretty short list that begins to form a picture of a vision. So I would be encouraged to give the council the full list because it's pretty. What we were really surprised at is the notes are hit again and again. There's so much unanimity. You're going to find that in the survey as well. There's so much unanimity. It's a surprising that such a precious thing to us all would not be more controversial in terms of vision. So however you want to forward that to the council, if that's a statement, you want to forward all these with the notes, I think it's all helpful.
Okay, thank you. I'll reserve discussion for after public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sneddon. Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez, any comments or questions rather?
Right now.
Sorry, I missed that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Not right now, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Dayton. I have one follow-up, which was kind of, I guess, initiated by Councilmember Sneddon's line of questioning. you know, one of the things initially that I really liked about this process, and of course recognizing that it, you know, not everyone has been clear or happy with it, but there are some good things here. One of the things that I liked is that my understanding was by going to these various boards and commissions, you could get feedback on from all of the commissioners. So not just one appointed member from PC, not just one appointed member from HLC, but you get the themes from all 7 PC members, all 5, I don't know the exact number, I apologize, HLC members, rather than just one. So in many ways, in terms of getting thematic feedback, it's more reflective of more boards and commission members' perspectives. Is that, would you say that that's true, or and do these include the themes you heard from all members of the boards? Or how did that work?
Yeah, absolutely, Madam Chair. And remember, this is what you asked us to do. So our first recommendation was to do this on your own. And I think, you know, through a lot of Councilmember Sten's leadership, really led to this process of going to every single member on the boards and commissions. So it's 125 people and a lot of hours of work to get to this place. So it's very inclusive in terms of visioning goes. And then you have, on top of that, we have the AIA survey, you have your own survey, you have the AIA recommendations, and we can dovetail those two. They're very, very consistent with the notes. I mean, it's not like people are, you know, there's this polarization on vision. There's so much agreement on where to go. So I think that we're safe in many ways to move from here to advise the council. But I think what we have is a robust conversation, and I thought it was a really healthy process that the committee recommended. And as a staff member, very delighted in what we found.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dayton. With that, I will open it up to public comment. I'm sure we have some folks that would like to share their thoughts with us. Ms. Perea, is there anyone with their hand up to speak?
Yes, the first person is Richard Clausen. Richard Clausen, you're welcome to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Goodness, I'm the first person. Thank you, Chair Harmon and members of the committee. A couple of points. First, to look back at the duration of the committee, it strikes me that, well, congratulations are in order. The committee has, I think in the beginning was somewhat muddled in its own process, and due to the insistence of Councilmember Sneddon, who I think even suggested the formation of this committee to the full council, that the goal will be the long-term vision rather than the short-term address of, oh my gosh, the COVID, deserves special mention. The second thing that I want to mention has to do with Mr. Dayton's slide, number 20, on why does redesigning State Street matter for downtown revitalization. And bullet point number 1 is because it will create and define the identity of Santa Barbara. I'm a little fearful of that because I believe that Santa Barbara already has, and for decades has had, almost a century has had an identity. And I wouldn't like to see that be the camel's nose under the edge of the tent, that we need a new identity. We need, perhaps it could be better said to offer direction that we need to refine the current identity and bolster it and reinforce it rather than to create and define it. But those are my comments. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Next commenter, please.
Okay, the next commenter is Anthony Grumbine. Anthony, you're welcome to go ahead and start speaking.
All right, great, thank you. This was good to see this presentation and good to hear that that how things played out on other the reviewed committees and bodies. I do think I think that seeing it come together, there is obviously a huge amount of agreement on it, and which is great. I do think it should, especially with something so important as the visioning statement, which really is locking in where everything will go from there. I do think that now that it's kind of collected and surveyed and now distilled down to these lists, I think it would be worth sending out this summary, because this is the first time I've seen it, of all the points, and getting some feedback from the groups now, so that you can have everyone kind of think it through now and see it and say, is there anything we're missing, or is there a really good point that needs to get worked in? Because right now you're setting the stage for everything to come. So I think this is a good time to do that. And I think with that, I think most maybe not all, but almost all of the things that have been said are really great and part of a key part of moving forward. And it's great to see that so many were in agreement. There might be some more finesse that needs to be added to it as well, but I think it's a really great start, and it's a real great, it's a good draft to work from. So and that's my opinion, but of course, the other HLC members, it'll be good for them to be weighing in as well. But just from my viewpoint of things, I think that it's a very good first step.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
I have the whole 30 seconds. Maybe I'll do like a song or something.
Go ahead. Please do. We appreciate it. That's a great idea.
Great. No, I'm a terrible singer. You don't want to hear that. Okay.
Thanks. Next speaker, please, Ms. Perrin.
Next speaker is Cass Ensberg. Cass Ensberg, you're welcome to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello again, Chair Harmon and committee members, council members. I just wanted to add, I agree with what has been said. I appreciate what Mr. Clausen said about our identity. I think that's important to remember, and also appreciate what Anthony has just said too. I would also just urge everyone, as an architect, I'm always, listening to what people are saying to try to understand, all the different points of view before moving forward with any kind of a design. And I hear all different kinds of, about, whether the State Street should be closed permanently, or are we going to permanently make it be open to just pedestrians and no cars? And I do hear concerns about that, and I'm sure you do too. But I just want to be sure that we are, really listening to those people who have, I think, some very good points about that, and whether or not, and even the charrette does show as well. There's a few that show, a trolley going up and down State. I mean, is it completely off or what? So I think this gets back to what I was saying earlier, that there's a whole lot of stuff in there. There's a whole lot of ideas. We need to come together and continue these discussions and find out what really is going to work and not make assumptions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Ensberg. Next speaker, please, Ms. Perrin.
Next, we have Kim Cochran. Kim Cochran, you're welcome to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, once again. All I want to say is thank you for all the great comments. I agree. Continue on. This is a wonderful process. What Cass just said, she nailed it right on the head. I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Cochran. Next speaker, please.
There are no more hands raised.
Great. With that, I will close public comment and open it up to my colleagues.
Madam Chair, may I interrupt just as I said that? Mitchell Severn raised his hand. So may I add him to the public comment, please?
Please, go ahead, Mr. Severn.
Okay, you're welcome to unmute yourself.
Great, thanks very much for taking my last minute jump in here. Madam Chair, Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez and Councilmember Sneddon, I'm most grateful to hear Mr. Dayton use the proper word transition instead of pivot. Thank you very much for avoiding that word. That was awesome. I think we do need a new identity, not a refinement Mr. Clausen just suggested. If we're not going to find that now, then when? I think it's especially important in regards to the grand jury report in June that criticized our planning process in Santa Barbara as being unwieldy and slow and anti sort of change. I think this is the opportunity for us to address that simultaneously. And ultimately, if there is dissension on the timeline, I'm wondering if this committee would maybe consider a interim step to extend the State Street emergency closure as opposed to having to make a decision imminently on whether or not this March we're entering is the end of the road for either closure or not closure. And I would suggest that for 3 reasons. Just in closing, I think that would better incentivize the businesses, the merchants to have a feel for whether or not the investment is worthy. I know a lot of people, certainly on West Victoria Street, have been hesitant to invest, not knowing whether or not this will continue. If given that extended period of time, I know that a lot of us would be more interested in making it look better, feel better, fit better. And I think that would go a long ways towards having the community think better of the way things look in the closure. Secondly, I think it would give time for the people that think this visionary process is important. I completely concur. And I think you've done a fabulous job on identifying this as a dual track consideration. One being, what do we do in the short term to get through this? And 2 being, what is our long-term plan? And I think separating the 2 out is the wise move for sure. And lastly, I think getting through to the other side of COVID will clear a lot of the clouds for us in our thinking and our process, so that we might have a better handle on what we really truly want it to look like come the end of this, hopefully soon. And thanks very much for taking the time.
Thanks, Mr. Sevierne. Mr. Dayton, Mr. Harris, that question, the extension question is coming to the full council. Is that right? Do you have a date handy? If not, I can email Mitchell separately if you don't happen to have it. But
No,
do you guys know?
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, in context to the public comment that was just put forth by a downtown restaurant owner on the emergency economic recovery ordinance that has facilitated and allowed all the outdoor business activity throughout the city, allowed for the closure of State Street. That was extended in December till March 8th of this year. It is set to expire March 8th, but staff, we are planning to go to council on February 23rd to seek an additional extension. And at this point, we're recommending a 6-month extension. So that would carry us through the summer till September 8th. And I think that does speak to both, well, primarily the ongoing need of businesses and for the safe public distancing of the pedestrian space in downtown. Because the pandemic, even though the vaccine is slowly rolling out and we are still in the throes of the pandemic, even though the stay-at-home order was lifted today, we're still going to be under the tier system. We're in the 4th and lowest tier, so we have 4 tiers to work through. So at this point, we do want to give acknowledgement and support and I think a longer term perspective for businesses to understand that the investment they've made on these interim temporary parklet conditions can remain for the foreseeable future for the next 6 months. And then to the kind of broader question on next steps, speaking just to that last slide, I'll just add my commentary here that I would suggest as additional perspective, and I'll put the slide up, so I'm kind of speaking in context here. So just to add, we were positioning for the next meeting on February 8th to come in and review the community survey results in addition to this thematic presentation. I think Mr. Dayton posed the question to the subcommittee this morning of the vision statement process. And we will spend some more time, obviously, be looking for additional commentary and direction from the subcommittee this morning. But recognizing the kind of summarization of thematic input is pretty succinct, is pretty consistent throughout as to, putting that forth to the council for review and reflection. And I think similarly, when you see staff's recommendations to the council in relation to the next steps in process, I think we have a perspective of commentary, look for additional feedback and direction this morning of bringing this kind of broadly together to move to the next steps. And I think we can address a variety of ideas and inputs that were raised today. So I'll keep my remarks short thereof and look for additional feedback and direction. And with that, I'll hand it to Mr. Dayton for any additional comment. thumbs up.
Okay, great. With that, I'll open it up to my colleagues. I appreciate it. And a reminder, that's February 23rd for anyone that's interested in that vote on the extension of the emergency ordinance related to keeping the street open to pedestrians. Okay, Councilmember Sneddon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to say thank you so much for going through all this additional outreach. And I do really, truly appreciate the feedback that's come back and the format that it's in. And I think it's a much more robust. And I was remiss in not starting with that earlier with a really hearty, sincere thank you for going through that additional process. I would, so we have these comments now, which are excellent, and these are from our boards and commissions. We have the survey results. We will have the survey results from the public, but we haven't had time to digest those yet or to have them. So I think it might be nice to have the next meeting to consider those survey results and consider the survey results of the AIA charrette. We had that excellent presentation, but they do have that 500 pages of very complete community input into like just so many ideas of what people would like to see. We might as well benefit from that effort and that creativity and input. And then we'll have then these comments, survey results, and incorporating in maybe some of the themes from that as well. And that might be its own meeting. And then after that, I would feel very complete in then taking a stab at, taking a first attempt at a vision statement. And then I think it would really be great to let that statement sit until the meeting after that, to let people help craft the language of it. I just know, I'm just going to give a little shout out to Leslie Wiscombe right now, and how, what a fantastic wordsmith she is, and we are as well. But when someone who's on planning commission, or other members who have been so careful in helping us craft these vision statements for different elements, say De La Guerra Plaza, they're better. They're just better when we have that. So I would think if then we had that vision statement and then let it sit for comment, and then we could add the comma or delete the comma or whatever it is to make it really nice before it comes to council. And that would just be my recommendation on that. And then something that I think is missing in these themes, and I think it might be how the questions were worded about, they're sort of worded about how you're going to use State Street or describe what's going on or what role. And I think we're really missing the honoring our history and Indigenous people and having that input. We really haven't had that voice. And I think it's not just Chumash, but we have multicultural history that I'm just not seeing. I mean, State Street, this is a real opportunity. Like when we're looking at shaping what we want it to be, but also what we want it to reflect about ourselves and what we honor. And there really hasn't been an opportunity to invite that type of language into the vision statement. This is very purpose driven. And it's the questions are very geared towards that. So I would just like to invite that. And I think very specifically, we should meet with representatives of our Indigenous communities. I mean, this is, when we talk about it being the spine and the backbone of the community, I would think that we should also add in there as a theme, whether it's been added or not, honoring our history in a very specific way in there. So just putting that out there now. But really, thank you for all of this added input. I really do think it's going to be better for that. And I think out of this process, how we're really coming to see that the long-term visioning is imperative. And I'm appreciating the support on that. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Snedden. I have just some similar thoughts. I really appreciate that. And I think, oh, sorry, Mr. Dayton, please go ahead.
I'd just like to confirm with Councilmember Snedden. So I wanted to memorialize her comment and add it to the themes. So Councilmember Snedden, what I have, and we would put this under what purpose does State Street fulfill? It reflects our history and indigenous people that lived before us. Does that sound like about what you were saying?
I think that's a good place to start. And then we will, thank you so much. Yeah.
And then I would suggest, just from what another thing that Councilmember said and suggested, and this goes in combination with Mr. Grumbine's recommendation of going through again. And I think there's a way to get there if you combine those, that if the committee came up with a vision statement and you wanted us to solicit all the individuals we've already been to on an individual basis, not a commission basis, but so we don't break the Brown Act, but just on an individual basis, please give us your thoughts on how this feels. And we will also, they haven't seen the theme, so we could also provide that in a document. And then we could come back and share some of the things that we heard.
Thanks, Mr. Dayton. That was going to be my suggestion exactly. I think that's a great solution. And as Councilwoman Snedden said, we'll get the benefit of the really excellent wordsmithing and feedback. So I think that's great. And I think taking an extra 2 weeks or whatever it takes to get that out there is certainly time well spent. And I'm really looking forward to the culmination of that process. I agree with Councilmember Snedden on the recognition of, State Street as Indigenous land and our history. I think that's really important. One thing that I wanted to see in the themes and if we could go back to that slide, because I could be wrong here, but I don't think I saw, was reference to our commitment to equity and the creation of a downtown that is welcoming to all people and is reflective of our entire community's needs. And that's something that's personally important to me. I agree with all of these. I think these are beautifully stated and I love the unanimity, but something that I think is essential is that we create a downtown that's for all of us. And so I would like to see that included in this, and maybe it can go along with Councilmember Snedden's suggestion, or maybe we can do a different one, but I just want to see that called out specifically in the themes. And I think it is reflected in the answer to this question that you have on the screen right now. So if we don't want to wordsmith it right now, I can send some thoughts separately, but I think something that talks about our commitment to equity in a downtown for all in the thematic list would be good. And that would be my suggestion.
Great.
What I would suggest is, I agree on the, it dovetails nicely with it reflects. So we can add that to Councilmember Snedden's, it reflects the diversity of our citizens and is welcoming to all.
Perfect.
That sound about right?
Okay. That sounds great. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Gutierrez, do you have any comments? I know you're under the weather, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
No, I'll share my comments and questions with the staff offline. Yeah, thank you, and I apologize. I seem to be suffering from some pretty serious food poisoning today, so I apologize.
We've all been there, Mayor Pro Tem. I hope you feel better. I think we already had public comment on this item. So unless Councilwoman Snedden has any further comments or staff has anything they'd like to add, I think we've done our business for today.
Thank you much.
All right, and
Thank you
hearing
so much.
none, looking forward to seeing you guys back here in a couple weeks, and thanks to the public for your continued engagement on this important issue. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.